Well, I certainly didn't expect that I would be covering an IndyCar race in Iowa and lead my coverage with a story about Hailey Deagan. But here we are, it's 2024 and the silly season cometh for everybody. The Intima Deegan was here today, and we'll talk about exactly why she was here today and exactly the implications that potentially that could mean in the future. Of course, she just got jettisoned from her NASCAR ride just a couple of weeks ago, and already sniffing around the IndyCar paddock, in particular the Indy Next paddock. So we'll talk about that. But I actually am here at Iowa Speedway for the IndyCar doubleheader here, the now traditional Hy-Vee IndyCar doubleheader, although this year a little bit less traditional than what we're used to, because one of these races will be taking place at night, Saturday night, and then right back to the racetrack on Saturday or on Sunday morning. A very quick turnover for the teams, something that's going to be very difficult. Also very difficult today are the track conditions new for this year. About 2 grooves of new pavement, not 3. The entire track has not been repaved, but 2 grooves in the corners have been. And that's caused a lot of problems that we'll talk about later on in this video with the drivers. I'll run through some of the notable highlights from today, because unfortunately, you know, at least in my mind, and I saw one of the races there where the PJ1 was really bad. It's given me some like bad PJ1 Texas vibes, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. So a few of the things that happened today in the practice session. The major notable thing was that there was actually a crash today. Marcus Ericsson backed it into the wall after spinning, getting onto the old pavement on the entry to the corner. Got the front tires on the new pavement, and it appeared to spin him around and get him into the wall. And then we saw a few more incidents. Catherine Legg got up into the gray when she had to get around the number 30 car of Christian Lundgaard, the number 45 of Christian Lundgaard. Got up into the groove, it sent her spinning, although she didn't hit anything. Santino Ferrucci almost did the exact same thing when Romain Grosjean put him up into the gray stuff. And then Agustin Canapino actually spun out of turn 2. Now he was actually in the racing group. It was Will Power who was slowing ahead of him. Canapino lost the rear end, spun, although it didn't look like he wanted to get around Will Power. He backed off the throttle, so kind of an indication of whether or not you want to get up into the secondary groove of this racetrack or not. And then right at the end of the session, the driver who set the fastest lap, Scott McLaughlin, came in behind some traffic. Again, everybody running in single file. McLaughlin kind of drove it in there, and then the thing got away from him, pushed up the racetrack. He got up into the gray stuff. He almost lost it. He did lose it, but he didn't actually hit the wall. So unfortunately, really bad Texas vibes. In fact, Pato O'Ward, most people won't have heard this, although he said it to the track PA. You know, he's expecting that qualifying is going to really mean the biggest difference and determine, unfortunately, the races, at least right now. IndyCar did to their credit, make some changes to this racetrack, or changes to their package in an effort from the test 2 weeks earlier to try to make the racing a little bit better. We'll talk about those later on in this video. They also did a 30-minute session trying to rubber in the second groove, although, you know, I think the jury is out on whether or not that actually helped very much. I don't think it helped very much at all. And Scott Dixon suggesting another highline practice, and I think that's something that's needed, although you have to force people to run in the second groove, which is going to be difficult. So we'll talk about more of that and hear from the drivers in just a second, but since I got you guys to click on this video because of Hailey Deagan, we'll talk about that. Hailey Deagan was here. She was observing the race, and Hailey Deagan wouldn't come to an IndyCar race if there wasn't something cooking. She was hanging out around the Indy Next paddock, and in particular, hanging out around the Andretti Global pits. Now, it's also interesting to note, thanks to some of the intrepid sleuthers on Twitter, to tell me that most recently she followed not only the Indy Next series, but also Andretti Global. So we'll see. Is there a possibility that she'll end up in the series by the end of the year? Probably not, I would say. Although certainly it's an oval heavy finish to the schedule. I wouldn't totally rule it out. I would most likely think this is something that is a potentiality for next year, and certainly something that's a major departure from what she's done in the past, although she has done some sprint cars on dirt, which of course is open wheel racing, and in particular when you're running with a wing, you have to deal with downforce. So not way out of the realm of her wheelhouse, although I think a lot of people were surprised when that news broke this morning. So let's talk a little bit more about this. Certainly, the Hailey Deagan thing is going to continue to develop, and one of the developing stories here, and certainly after the test in which Colton Herta ran 189 plus here at Iowa Speedway. IndyCar made some downforce reductions prior to this weekend, although I think the track record, which is 186 miles an hour, is still within jeopardy. Practice today, Scott McLaughlin clicked off a lap at 185.8 miles an hour, about a mile per hour off of the track record. So I think there is a chance of a track record later on today. Now that was Scott McLaughlin. He was fastest today. Well, who was fastest when we were last here at Iowa? That was Joseph Newgarden. And we spoke to him earlier today, and I wanted to ask, with all the changes, how much can you bring back to Iowa Speedway? Does anything come out of the notebook from previous years that works anymore, or do you have to totally yard sale it?
It's hard. I don't know that we're yard sailing the car. I mean, in a lot of ways, I think the intrinsic properties of our race car and what made it so good are still going to be true. They're just less impactful than what they used to be. Before they repaved this thing, it was bumpy, super high tire degradation. It just played into our race car. I still think you have some of those elements. It's just significant. It's only 20% of what it used to be. So we're coming with a lot of the same philosophy, but we're very flexible right now. We've got a new downforce level that we haven't run yet, a new tire that we haven't run. Once we determine what those things do, then we can start to move around and figure out where to put the car.
And of course, I mentioned it earlier, Colton Herta showed incredible speed, as well as many other drivers, incredible speed in testing, almost 190 mile per hour lap average speeds that we've seen here at Iowa Speedway. Now again, IndyCar changed the formula a couple of weeks before. There's a softer right side tire compound for the Indy cars, which is hopefully going to give some deg to the cars. But there's also a reduction in the maximum amount of downforce that you can carry on these race cars. Now, Graham Rahal told it was NBC, that maybe he thought they went a little too far in taking away too much downforce. But again, the speeds are still there. And I talked to some of the drivers about the speed increase here at Iowa Speedway and what's it like to race around here at almost 200 miles an hour.
Pretty cool. It's mind-blowingly quick. I don't know what kind of G's we're pulling, but it feels like it's way over like 5, 6. It's fast. It's like your eyes can barely like keep up. So qualifying would be cool. Like 2 laps around here and trying to keep it as flat as you can would be really cool.
It feels so. It's weird because it feels quick and the straight line speed's not faster because of the downforce. So cars are kind of topped out, but the mid-corner speed's just like unbelievable. But it feels fast. I mean, you're basically flat out around here, which is like, it's kind of satisfying because like you go to iRacing and then you always run like the big flat out ovals in the IRL league, and it's just like, this is awesome. And then you come here and you're like doing it in real life, you're like, this is nuts.
It's pretty insane. Like the speeds were super impressive, so it was a lot of fun. But yeah, for the racing, I think it was too fast. So that's why, hopefully with the less downforce and more deggy tires, that will create, some of that old Iowa back. Because yes, it was fantastic to drive it that fast in the corners in the test. It was super fun. But yeah, I was a bit worried about what it will do with the racing. So we'll see this weekend. I still think no matter what, we're going to put on a good show because it's such a short track and so many cars, short track. It's got to create some drama and interesting racing. But yeah, hopefully it will be multiple lane racing as well.
The thing is, the G-forces last year, the lap time is not that much different. You have 17.6 was pole and 16.9 was lap time. So, okay, it's a bit faster, but it's like you can do that lap for 60 laps. That's the problem, really. Doing it for 2 laps is fine, but when you start doing 30, 40, 50 laps in a row and you're going that speed, and then you have 250 laps, and then 12 hours later you got another 250 laps, we're going to be destroyed by the end of the race too. So I'm kind of excited about it. I've been training hard and resting well, so try to use those to advantage.
And I've mentioned it a couple of times, a softer tire compound on the right side, less wing. What will the changes to Iowa Speedway do in the driver's minds? This is a really different race than it was last year. I mean, is there any expectation of what to expect here?
We have no idea. I mean, we tested here probably 3 weeks ago, and the tire had like no tire deck, ton of grip, super fast. It was fun, but it was actually too easy to do a full stint without tire decks, so that's why Firestone brought up a new compound that we haven't tested. It doesn't come from Gateway or any other test or any other track. It's a brand new, so we don't really know if it's going to be more grip, less tire deck, more tire deck, like we don't know. So the idea is to have more tire deck to avoid having any blisters and hopefully a good race.
After the test, everyone was concerned about the racing coming up, and there's been changes made. I'm hoping they're in the right direction, but it's a hit or miss. So I'm truly hoping the Hailie works, because out of every ovals I've done, this one was probably one of the funniest one. Last year, I think we've added 105 pounds to the car, and that's going to hurt us. You want it or not, it's weight and it's not friends for traffic. So we've seen in Milwaukee when we tested with Ganassi, it was very hard to pass. We've seen here the test was very hard to pass. So definitely some things to look at and make changes, and hopefully the changes that were made are going to be right.
Repave all the track. The issue is that if we repave only half or one and a half lanes, it's tough to get there. We'll go out and we'll put as much rubber as we can, and we'll try and get that second lane working, but it'll be tough.
The nice thing is when they paved here, obviously the transition from the transitions into 1 and 3, you don't really feel. They've done a really good job blending that in, and when you get to the exit of the corners where you're back on the gas and the car's sliding, you're on the new pavement all the way out to the wall. So we don't really need to worry about setting the car up for the old pavement. It's kind of like the same old Iowa, to where you're setting it up to drive it in as hard as you can, and just that's what's important. And kind of that same philosophy applies here. Obviously, it's a little bit of a different setup now with the fact that the track's so smooth. I think we were all kind of nervous watching the Cup cars go bouncing around, and then we got on it and we were like, this thing's like, it's beautiful. It's like the floor. It's nice. So we're all happy about it, and like I said, I think Highline is going to be important, so we can pass. Because if not, I think it's going to be a single-lane racetrack.
We need to work and put rubber up there on the Highline practice, but then we need to also have guys run up there in the normal practice as well, I think, to try and continue to rubber it in and have people comfortable to run up there. Because in the test, everyone was just camping on the bottom, and then, it creates marbles up there, and no one is comfortable running up there, and then it just becomes a one-lane track. So we need people running up there to be comfortable and putting rubber down, and then we need to have tires that dig, so you can sort of get the cornering speeds down a little bit. Because now in the test, even in the end of a tire stint, you were still so fast in the corners on the new pave that it's like, even if the second lane would be working, you're so fast on the bottom that you're not going to be fast enough to go around someone.
But it does level it out a little bit with all the teams that have got years and years of really good data and experience. And it's new to everybody, and I think everybody was shocked by the level of grip that we had when we tested here. Like, it was a lot. So now we don't know what to expect either, because we're reducing downforce by significantly, by like up to 400 pounds really. And we're also changing the right front tire compound to make that degrade a little bit, to make for better racing and passing and all the other things. So what we had when we tested here is not what we will have this weekend either. And so it's somewhat of a moving target, but again, hopefully that keeps it fresh and new and like everybody on their toes.
And of course, the big talking point from last week carries into this week, because it is all new for IndyCar in some ways. This is the first race weekend to feature the hybrid system installed on the race cars. So, obviously, I asked all of the drivers what they expect and how much of an impact they expect for that hybrid system to cause this race.
Yeah, I mean, why not? It's free lap time. Even if it's really small, it's free. This series is so competitive nowadays that if you're giving up, I don't know, 1/10, half a tenth, even if it's half a tenth, it's good enough for pole at Mid-Ohio. So, yeah, I'll be using it as much as I can. Obviously, I think everybody will, even if they say that they won't. They will be using it because it's free power. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if hopefully we can make some differences between drivers that you use it out of 1 and I keep it out of 2 and I keep it for out of 4, and maybe that enables me to pass or not. So yeah, that'll be exciting.
Not that much. I think we at the test when we saw that it wasn't like a big gain and maybe more distraction than anything. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be a game changer here.
It's less than Mid-Ohio, is what I'll say. Mid-Ohio was, it was definitely a difference. You'd see 2-3 tenths of performance, which is a lot in IndyCar racing if you're not using the system. And I think it's more than just the outright performance of deploying the power. The regen side actually has quite a bit of an effect on the car and the balance. So that can change. Yeah, we did a little shift, I think. That's great.
We're good.
We'll fix it in post, or we won't. No, but I think here is less performance-based in that it is very short. You're going to use it. I think the system will come most into play during the race on later laps. I think when you get in that 40 to 70 lap stint, that's when the hybrid's going to make most of the difference. You're wearing out, you're slowing down. That's when you want a little boost off the corner. So, that's my prediction, but everyone's going to use it differently. That's the beauty of it. Everyone's going to come up with their own determination on how to use it, but I think that's where it's going to make the most effect.
I'm not really sure yet. I think, let's say you put pressure on someone let's say someone's weak out of turn 2, you're probably going to want to save up so you can put pressure out of turn 2 just to kind of force the other guy into a mistake. It's as much as a defending tool as a offense tool, right? So I'm not sure exactly how we'll work it. I think it's going to be the big challenge is going to be using it in the corners, because I think you're going to have to, which is going to be, it's already a physical track, so using your hands and fingers while you're under full load is going to be something new for us. It's already annoying to use the radio button when you're in the corner, so this is going to be like that every lap. But it's a cool challenge, and I think when it becomes second nature, it's less of an annoyance that you feel you're actually using it to go forward, which was the case in Mid-Ohio. It's still early days, still learning a lot.
I think it will, but not at this track. So momentum here is so high that you're not really lifting that much. It's not a full lift. So the hybrid has a little bit of a harder time recharging when you're not in a full lift. So I feel like it's going to be more of a strategic use of the power. So you'll be conserving it and using it for defense and offense, as opposed to Milwaukee, you can basically use it every other lap because you're lifting and having a big, coast moment. And obviously road and street courses, you are running out of it every lap, in two full bursts. So it's a bit of a different game here. The weight hasn't actually had as big of an effect here as I thought it would. I think partially to do with the new pavement, but hard to say.
Yes and no, but again, it's like Mid-Ohio. We don't really know what it would have been without because of the pavement. So I really think we're going to see the difference in Toronto. Luckily for us, we had a good car there last year. We won the race, and that's, to me, is going to be where you really see the difference. I'm sure that some of the teams that have tested a lot more have more information than we do, but at this point, I think the physicality of the new pavement, the heavier car, now having reduced downforce from the test is definitely going to make it easier for us, but it's going to be an interesting race for the hybrid, how people utilize it, how people regen, if the high line is going to work or not. Obviously, I think we're all expecting it to, but I think there's concerns and questions as well.
I was really surprised, really pleasantly surprised at how good this was and how intuitive it is. And so it is a little bit difficult because you have to think about the state of charge that you have and the regen you have going in, because it affects you more actually on the decel than it does on the deploy, right? So, for example, if you've got no charge and you've got it on auto and you're going in, then it really slows the car down and it balances the car, and it's a lot easier to get through the corner. But if you go in at 100% charge and it's not doing that, then you're like, oh, I've gone in a little bit quick here. So it's a constant, I need to deploy and I need to regen and I need to do it either automatically or pull the paddle. And so it just adds another element of things that you have to think about at the same time as doing 200 miles an hour and fighting everybody else, right? And so for me, I don't have the level of comfort that all of these guys do, being in the car week in, week out, and testing all the time and doing all the things. So I'm consciously thinking about it, whereas theirs is a little bit more instinctive at the moment, I guess. But we'll get there.
And so some real quick final thoughts before I sign off. I am concerned, there's no doubt about it, about this particular race, and particularly the fact that there are back-to-back races. If you crash in race 1, that's going to essentially end your weekend. It always does at a doubleheader, but here especially, assuming that you crash on lap 1, you've got 12 hours to fix your race car. And I think there's going to be a lot of crashes this week. There's so much talk about this being a one-groove racetrack, and everything I saw, especially once there were about 20 cars out on the racetrack, you want to be on the bottom lane of the racetrack right now. That is the safe place around this racetrack. And unfortunately, if you get out of line and your tires are warm, you're really going to be in trouble. Scott McLaughlin said essentially, as the run progresses, it becomes like driving on glass, which isn't necessarily something that I look at as a positive, and it's very disappointing to me. And you heard Alex Palou, they should have just repaved the entire track. I have no idea why they didn't do that, and hopefully they'll change that for next year. But unfortunately, I'm a little bit pessimistic going into the next 2 days here at Iowa Speedway, and I'm happy if I get proven wrong. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more motorsport content, and I will see you in the next video.